a global MBA. There's a missing language here, and so let's talk a little bit Latin. And this is the motto of Sao Paulo, and I like it very much because it fits like a brand positioning for the city and for my work. And I'm here to tell you two cases about leadership triggered by one unprecedented event, the Clean City Law. The first case of leadership is how city and citizens faced visual pollution and said no to advertising in Sao Paulo. The second case of leadership is how artists and citizens joined together and adopted urban art as a lifestyle and allowed a boom of urban art in Sao Paulo. I'll do a controversial relation between the two cases, and I'll prove it, between the Clean City Law and how it allowed this boom of arts. So I'll show you also how leadership forces acted spontaneously and creating a different scenario than it was previously planned. So first of all, some technical words about my study. And I need to have a multidimensional research plan, and I was in trouble to design it mainly because this is a pioneer study. There's no records about that. And I need to design a multidimensional research plan. The second factor is that it is history happening, is life history, and I needed too many POVs to not be the owner of the truth. And I needed to be a photographic witness of what was happening to see the magnitude of the phenomenon and to capture its dimension. So I chose for three items here: ethnography, I did interviews, and literature and case study. Going deeper in ethnography, I had daily contact with artists and people related with the cases. I went to do graffiti in loco, I went to gallery, had informal conversations, make some friends during this work. And maybe the most important part of this ethnography was the photographic safari I did. I really did something like 3,000 pictures. Maybe more because I lost some of them in the beginning of the year, and I went in 4 regions of Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo is a huge city, maybe bigger than Berlin, for sure it's bigger than Berlin, and went to the poor and the rich districts and documented graffiti, stencil, pichação, urban art in general. The interviews and the questionnaires, I went through in-depth interviews with key people, had conversations for 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, talking with them, got important findings about that, but there was some important opinions that were not reachable. So I did an online survey, a questionnaire, and got the opinion of those people also. These key people is from all kind of markets and related areas with the topic. And at the end, case studies in literature. So I need to have the whole picture of what was happening. So I look at the internet, newspapers, magazines, books. So I was following all kind of information that I could get about the issue, not only the Clean City Law, but the worldwide urban art scene. So let's go talk about Sao Paulo, the huge metropolis of Latin America, 11 million inhabitants. It all started in the 16th century, just to talk about a little the influences that we have in the city. In the beginning was only the natives. Yeah, they like to eat some different things. And then came the Portuguese, and also we have influence from the Africans. Jumping to the 20th century, we had huge influence from the Japanese, Italian, Lebanese, Spanish, Portuguese, and so on. It makes Sao Paulo one of the most vibrant cultural and human melting pots. Yeah, it's influenced by people from all over the country and people from 5 continents. This is a very solid economy. If Sao Paulo would be a country, it would be ranked in the 50 global economies, bigger, for example, than Egypt or Kuwait or even Chile. So it leads to one thing. This is the mecca of the consumerism in Brazil, or even in Latin America. So all advertisers, offices, communications companies, agencies, newspapers, radio and TV broadcasters, digital and media companies are there. And for sure, out-of-home media companies, unless until 2007. This was a business that grew out of control in Sao Paulo. So this was an environment of cutthroat competition and led to an important problem, a health problem to the city. The scenario in 2006 was the following. We have 15,000 boards and signs in the city. Mostly of them invaded the landscape with no regulation. Invaded the citizens' eyes, the citizens' minds, the citizens' hearts. And Sao Paulo became a lab in which to try out everything about exterior media. So you could try everything what you want about street communication, any size, any format, any way you want to do, you could do that. So in spite of the traditional companies, there was no ethics involved in this business. So Sao Paulo became a terrible place. The city took a phase in which fostered a cruel bombardment onto its citizens. A complete chaos, visual chaos. Yeah? And the visual pollution became a public health problem. Yeah? Here we had, let me get back. Ambition, the lack of regulation, well-paid creative work, and even corruption gave a big contribution for the visual disease of the city. So the giantism syndrome affected the main street advertisers. The belief that one needs to shout to draw out the attention of the customer was a fact. And it was the underlying ethos of visual communications in the city. So, despite of the financial appeal and huge structural problems of the city, Sao Paulo had a dream. And the debate over visual pollution was in the agenda of Sao Paulo society. And the Municipal Company of Urbanization, EMURB, where studies into its impact on human health had highlighted the imminent need of visual and urban reform in Sao Paulo. However, it would be unfair to vilify only street advertising to the visual pollution of Sao Paulo alone. Visual pollution in Sao Paulo's case consists in a combination of several layers of cables, TV, electricity, telephone, dilapidated building facades, uncollected refuse, graffiti, and defaced walls. Yeah? But something were about to happen there. Those pictures would be the perfect scenario for the city. So then we got to the Clean City Law. Yeah? Town Hall decided to a blanket ban in the city on a tighter control only on illegal posters. So here we had an example how leadership can be heavy-handed in some attitudes. And then the law came. We were in September 2006. The voting showed the unanimous support by the councillors. So finally, in 2007, 1st January, it left the drawing board. So shortly after the announcement, it was granted a grace period of 3 months to the commercial establishments fitting the new standards. The out-of-home media companies, they were obliged to freeze airing ads and to withdraw existing and future ads. and simply ban them from the street. And high fines will be applied. In fact, they were applied. It was a huge operation that involved cranes, people from the town hall, policemen, even the mayor by personally was fining some places. This is a kind of leadership, a doer one, yeah, the old-fashioned one. So after a period of skepticism, the protests started growing up, yeah, and polemic was the talk of the town. Judicial battles, companies were inciting the non-adherence. So since many pieces were enormous, the fines were as well. In 6 months, all posters were, the giant posters were removed. So what happened? The pressure was intense, yeah, but the impact was positive. And despite of the nation stumbling blocks, the ugly pavements come into the view, and we saw the bare walls and poor and uninspired architecture that was hidden by the signs. So, amidst all the controversy, the heated debates, another factor emerged. That was the support of the population. And we are talking about something around 90% of approval pro-clean city law. So, now the streets are remarkably free from advertising, and the issue got an unprecedented focus. The citizens start recovering their pride of the city and the ownership of the city. And this was a truly turning point for the city and the population. The outdoor media industry in Sao Paulo went through its final episode. Business closed down, moved to other cities, and then outdoor media became indoor advertising in Sao Paulo. So here we witnessed the end of a visual dynasty. So the most important iconography of the city that was completely was spread around the city suddenly in 6 months disappeared. So as in history, when a dynasty succeeds another, it's not exactly a coordinated move. Yeah. So one ruins and the other comes on the vacuum. So suddenly, without the competition of the giant ads, the only pieces that were talking, communicating on the streets with the people were the graffitis, the stickers, and so on. So they started to protagonize a dialogue with the population. They inherit that. So all visual written messages there were in the form of graffiti, stickers, pamphlets, and so on. So graffiti history in Sao Paulo, it dates from the 80s. In the 90s was a very fruitful period that appeared the names that are very well known and very well reputed in the urban art scene, like Os Gêmeos, Viché, Speto, and some more names. So then you ask me, so graffiti always exists in Sao Paulo landscape? Yeah, for sure, it existed. But it was considered a crime, it was considered vandalism. Street artists have never been called artists. It used to be practiced during the night in a very rebellious spirit. And then the Clean City Law provided the missing push for this process of secession that I'm referring. And probably created a watershed on the history of world urban art. The phenomenon that happened in Sao Paulo only could happen in Sao Paulo because some 4 reasons that I'll list for you. The architecture, the isolation, a collaborative leadership, and the creating of Brazilian style. So this is a completely different case from all other cities like Berlin, New York, Barcelona, and Sao Paulo has very specific motivations to do that. I'll cross quickly through the architecture because it's an accomplice of urban art in Sao Paulo. These pictures are from 2009, 2010. Yeah? Because of the vertical growth, the fear of violence, the social segregation, it filled the city of gates, walls, blind walls, buildings. So the spaces are enormous, and you have lots of them, and the artists go there. The isolation. Regarding the high cost of the paints, the materials, the access to sprays, publications, and exchange with overseas artists, it was very difficult to Brazilian urban artists. So they needed to be adaptable, flexible, and collaborative to strive and find their own alternatives and resources. So the sprays in Brazil, produced in Brazil, used to be in a very bad quality. So they started inventing their own resources to thicker the line. So toothpicks, chunks of plastic inserted into the spray nozzles in order to change the thickness were used. The use of latex painting, much cheaper than spray. And changing the spray nozzles from deodorants or insecticides were used to achieve finer lines. So all of those attitudes created a different panorama in Sao Paulo urban art scene. And then appeared another one, led to a collaborative leadership. The use of cheaper paints meant that larger areas could be covered. So if larger areas could be covered, you could increase creative resources and allow the creation of large murals. So it brought the participation of several artists to join forces and create and paint collective pieces. And this is a characteristic, a unique characteristic of the urban art scene in Sao Paulo. All the artists join together, they pass through their egos and their individuality and join together and paint these huge walls. So it's given. The urban artists in Sao Paulo are great storytellers. Yeah? And different from Berlin, Barcelona, and New York, we have here this kind of collective work. It led to another thing, the birth of a Brazilian style. So, as mentioned before, Brazil is a fascinating cultural melting pot. So we have there many influences. Remember the old lady in the beginning? So now here we have the anthropophagic reference, the cannibal references on the walls of the city. And starting from its own cultural roots, there's an inner capacity of incorporating new cultures, new use, new flavors, new musics, new colors in the work. And along their languages, beliefs, religions. So this is clearly portrayed in the streets of the city. Recurrent themes as politics, class fights, history, and religion appear in that works. And it's a different kind of criticism that we can find in the US or Europe. It's a sweeter, a softer way to tell the story and to tell what's about the protest. And it gives some hints about the importance of those subjects for the 2000 decade society in Brazil. So we need to remember that those guys, they come from the middle layers of the society. So they can bring the real message of the people to the streets. So in some works you can find indigenous people and ordinary people from the city, and then it establishes a strong link with the viewer. We have many drawings that have strong references. For example, the cordel literature. Cordel literature are small, fantastic fables that are very popular in the poorest area of Brazil, the northeastern part. Yeah, this is Lampião. Lampião is a legendary thief, and this is the meeting of Lampião with the only one breast African woman. So I need to read that. Cordel is printed in linotype graphics and illustrated in xylographic artworks. So we have this wood carving aspect of the drawings. Those drawings also depict potent Brazilian folklore appeal with sea creatures, religious figures, references of African culture, tattoo, pop art, so everything mixed together. You can find it on the streets. And there is also room for something feminine, cute, and even innocent. Well, through these 4 points that establish that Brazilian has a complete different scene, Sao Paulo has a completely different scene in urban arts, we go through the conclusions and outcomes from my analysis. The first one is how one event allowed the other, how the Clean City Law brought the boom of urban art during the period of 2006-2007. Many events happened in these 2 years. First one, the rise of a new middle class. So the vast majority, as I mentioned, of those urban artists has humble roots, and they live in districts very far from downtown. Although they are self-taught artists, they have quite a higher level of information about the international scenes and the international urban art scenes and the basic of history of art. There's no doubt this is a result of the socio-economical transformation which the country has gone through during the President Lula leadership. And curiously, it happened through 2006-2010. This transformation was brought about increased spending power through credit lines. And more than TV sets, those people will be able to buy computers, internet access, information, books, quality paints, and even go to the school and to private universities. So this is such a change in the society. And this is one of the testimonials that I got from Regina Monteiro, the mentor of the project. The second one is the increased participation of Brazilian artists in urban art exhibitions. So, with very few exceptions, the major exhibitions of urban art in Brazil and abroad took place between 2006 and 2007. Very few exceptions. So, already renowned in the international market, Os Gêmeos, for example, did their first individual exhibition in Brazil only in 2006. Yeah? And this is a clear hint of the leadership of curators and gallerists. Many of relevant exhibitions happened after that. Even the press referred to it as something very new. This is an article in Marie Claire magazine. So you may have been irritated upon seeing the wall marked up with the spray or paint. It was 2006. 2007, Os Gêmeos, Nina and Nunca were invited to paint the whole facade of Kelburn Castle in Scotland. 2007. 2008, Os Gêmeos e Nunca were selected to expose with other artists in Tate Modern. 2009, Vertigo exhibition from Os Gêmeos, the big one in Brazil. They brought 74,000 spectators to the show in 1 month. 2009, MASP, the most important museum from the South Hemisphere. This is the house of Rembrandt, Van Gogh, Degas, and many others. They made an exception for the urban art and hosted the exhibition Inside Out, Outside In, entirely dedicated to urban art. Here's the curator of MASP. He's reinforcing that is a tribute to a cultural phenomenon that is happening in the city. So, 144,000 visitors in this exhibition. 8,000 visitors in only 1 day. 2010, MAN, the Modern Art Museum of Sao Paulo, commissioned a mural by Os Gêmeos to be included in their permanent collection. 2010, Bienal Graffiti Fine Arts took place in the Sculpture Museum of Sao Paulo. The Street Biennale 2010, now in October. Go to the streets and see the blind walls with artists from 3 countries. So, the third one is the growing interest in graffiti. So this is this third evidence can be found in the internet searching in art crimes site. This is a site that registers the majority of exhibitions, auctions and events in street art worldwide. So, here I made a search here, the mentions of Brazilian artists, at least one, in urban art events realized in the last 5 years. Yeah? We find here in 2005, events abroad, 8. In 2007, 21, 2008, 31. So, bigger numbers, much more than before, and clearly the watershed of Clean City Law was here. The site is the only one which provides the chronological tracking of all the world urban art scene. The other one, another telling item, is indicated in the growth of public interest and the number of mentions found in Google search in Portuguese. So here we have graffiti plus the year plus Sao Paolo. In 2004 we have 10,000. In 2007, so the numbers came in an exponential multiplication. And here I have a very, very important testimonial of someone from EMURB, the urbanization company of Sao Paulo. So telling me about your question on the relationship between the Clean City Law and urban art boom, it really does exist. Regina Monteiro, the mentor, coordinates this matter within Town Hall by request of the mayor, and it's not alone in this task. Yeah? Here we can see two opposed leadership forces working together. The town hall and the artists led by the curators and the gallerists. So, here we have the fourth, the constant presence in the media and the market. So it goes beyond the audiences, goes beyond the searches on internet. We can see in the printed and digital press many covers, news programs, articles. And even if you go to the streets and you can see these kinds of graffitis, you can find it in editorials. The artists start being invited to do advertising, fashion design, everything during 2009-2010. Fashion design again, and even sales promotion. Another indicator is particularly intriguing, the number 5, the inclusion in collections and increased value market. In 2010, the work of artists, street artists, started being stolen from the streets. These articles tell about that. Some collectors went to the streets and started stealing gates, pieces of walls, and whatever they could find and bring to home. So this reveals much more than Paulistanos or Brazilian loves graffitis. Yeah, Os Gêmeos sold pieces inside and outside Brazil for more than $40,000 dollars. Calma, another artist, did the same, and $50,000 in New York. He sold some paintings. So nowadays it's quite common. The owners of streets, residences, they offer to the artists their walls and their facades to be painted by the artists. The walls of their buildings, even humble houses and rich houses, whole facades. So people are investing in art, even it's in their door. So the sixth, and this outcome came through my personal interviews, the transformation of the relationship with the authorities and the review of the original project. A new behavior among street artists in Sao Paulo started appearing, and they started painting in the daylight to avoid the policeman approach. And it's very common to see them painting during the day. However, they experimented a different feeling, the interaction with people in the streets. So, and this is another important turning point on the relation. It was allowed and endorsed by the society and by the policeman, who does strong repression against tag writing, but with graffiti is completely different relation. So the authorities, whose mission was to combat illegal interferences in the landscape, they noticed that Sao Paulo became a stable of talents, and then they changed their attitude by understanding that. Sao Paulo Town Hall, become aware of that, began to adapt the project, the Clean City Law, in light of the power of the importance of what was happening. And here I have another important testimonial. I'm sorry for doing you read that, but it's told by Regina Monteiro in my personal interview with her. And we held a large meeting because there was a secretary in charge of organizing the public area who went out painting over the graffiti using grey paint. This sparked a revolt among the street artists. The mayor realized that something was wrong, got sponsorship, and then redid a large panel of Os Gêmeos that was erased by the green paint. It's another relationship. Everyone is a kind of amazed with that. So this is a concrete fact that the leadership must be aware of the moves of the society, what's happening around them. And the most compelling outcome is that one iconography really substitutes the other, is the appropriation of advertising spaces. Urban interventions took up physically the space that once was sold for advertising in home furniture, street furniture, bus shelters. Here's written, more love please. The bus shelters, public clocks, sorry, garbage bins, protective 3 surrounds, theater facades, blind walls, newspaper stands, all places that once were commercialized. And then they are a platform to talk with people through art. October 2010, this was the elections period in Brazil, and federal law allowed the advertising for elections on the streets. It was a shock in Sao Paulo because people were accustomed with no advertising on the streets, and people start protesting. One guy, Tony DeMarco, this street artist, started kidnapping the easel displays boards with the candidates, took to his studio and repainted it and gave back to the streets. He even created a candidate for president. He was running for president and congressman, the Picho Tosco, put his pictures on the Facebook, and you can imagine the result of this protest. So this is another example of each segment of the society assuming their part on the leadership process. So this guy was on the cover of some important newspapers. And that's it. To finish, I invite you to a ride around Sao Paulo.